Hello, everybody. Welcome. Thank you for joining. We're just waiting for a few more people to be admitted as attendees, but again, thanks for coming along. We've started a recording of this, which is going to be available through both our YouTube channel and a blog page as well. So if you have colleagues or anybody else who you think this would be worth sharing with, please feel free to share this. That will go up at some time tomorrow. So we'll just wait a couple more minutes for a couple more attendees, and then we'll get started looking at the latest eBay mandate and how we can go about using Optiseller to help you get ahead of the game. Okay, excellent. So if we have any late attendees, we'll have them join as well. But thanks everyone for coming along today. My name's David Trusson, and I work here at Optiseller on the customer success team. So the webinar today is really aimed at optimizing item specifics to improve your eBay performance, with specific reference to the latest eBay mandates. So trying to understand what that means for you, and then ultimately, what can you do about it? So a little bit about me. I started my journey in e-commerce with Channel Advisor about 8 or 9 years ago. Also spent some time with both POC Studios working in app commerce, and with Trustpilot, who you probably know is a review service. And I'm obviously working now in customer success here at Optiseller. So I've got quite an interesting background in the sense that I took a break from e-commerce for some time, and I worked as a special needs teacher for the last 5 years, predominantly as a head of science. And then during the pandemic, as I live with someone who's high risk, wasn't a viable option anymore. So obviously was really fortunate to have a strong e-commerce background, especially given kind of the boom in e-commerce, and already had some existing connections within the industry that led me here to Optiseller. So I've been working with Optiseller now since December last year. And I work in the customer success team. So my role is really aimed at helping retailers of all different sizes with data optimization, training on the tools that we offer, account health checks. And basically, I've gone from educating students around science to helping educating sellers about how to get the most out of eBay. And yes, I do set eBay homework now. So still doing something a little bit similar to my past life. I also help to train some eBay staff on the range of Optiseller tools and eBay best practices, and work alongside my colleagues in the customer success team to deliver consultancy for sellers. So that's just a little bit background about me. So what's our agenda for today? So the agenda is a very quick intro about Optiseller. Then we're going to dig into what are item specifics and why are they important. We're going to look at the upcoming 12th of July mandate. Then we're going to get into the nitty gritty and actually show you a demo of the Optiseller tool Aspect Finder Plus. We're going to talk a bit about the value of then completing item specifics, summarize everything that we've talked about, and then we'll have time for Q&A at the end. Please do feel free to use the chat to ask questions as we go along. We do have members of the customer success team on this call at the moment, so they'll endeavour to answer those questions. However, they may flag those to me to be raised in the Q&A if we think there's something that is worth addressing on a wider scale, or for everybody in the chat. Probably worth noting as well that if there's anything that's coming up and there are some very specific questions, or you feel that you would benefit from spending some time with somebody from the customer success team, specifically around our platform and how that can help, after this, please do feel free to reach out. We'll make sure that contact information is available. And as I said, we're really focused on trying to help sellers. So any conversations we can have around helping you to get the most out of eBay and how to use our tools to the best of your ability is exactly what we're here to do. So please don't be shy if you need to reach out. So a little bit about Optiseller. The company was founded in 2004. So we've got 12 years experience in e-commerce and specializing specifically in online marketplaces. What's really great about Optiseller is that we've actually got a really highly experienced team of industry experts. So many have come directly from eBay and other associated partners that you'll probably be familiar with, as well as having people who've come from the retail side as well, which is really good. We've also got lots of people on our team who either run eBay stores or Shopify stores as well. So just like you, they're out there trying to make the best out of these platforms and generate as much revenue as they can. Ideally spending as little time as they can. So they give us really unparalleled insight into what the benefits and challenges of selling online in these marketplaces are. So we're not just flying blind. We're getting the feedback not just externally from sellers like yourselves, but also internally from sellers within the organization. So getting lots and lots of really good information from sellers. Over the past 9 years of working on eBay, we've developed a deep understanding of how eBay works and what you need to do in order to achieve success on eBay, and how to be consistent as well. So we're really happy to share that knowledge. Obviously, we have a whole suite of software tools available that can really help sellers improve in those areas. But we really like to share any information which is going to help people to be successful. So hopefully today, the value is going to be understanding, particularly around the mandates and how valuable and useful item specifics can be, but also that if you need guidance in any other area of working on eBay, we're available as a resource. Please feel free to reach out to us. So our mission is really simple, but it's never an easy one. We want to help you sell more online, and that's the bottom line for us. Is eBay has many different facets to it. It's a puzzle with a lot of pieces. We want to help you with as many of those pieces as we possibly can. Today, the piece we're going to be focused on is obviously item specifics. So a little bit about what we do as a business. So Optiseller don't just produce a software platform. We actually do far more than that. So we've got sort of 3 core competencies that we work with. The first one is consultancy. So as well as onboarding new sellers to eBay, we help hundreds of retailers who are already selling on eBay to identify and action growth opportunities every year. That can be on individual consultancy basis. It can be over longer periods of time. We have some sellers who we work with on a weekly basis, some who we work with on a monthly basis. It really depends on the needs of the seller as to what level of consultancy we offer. We also have our development arm. So we offer bespoke integration and connectors between retail systems, marketplaces, and other tools to help retailers to scale their businesses faster. We obviously have our software as a service solution as well, Optiseller, and as part of that, there's a whole range of different tools. The main one we're going to be looking at today is Aspect Finder Plus. But if there's anything that you hear about or see today that is of more interest to you, please give us a shout. I'd be happy to talk to you about the full range of tools that we have available for sellers. We do also offer data optimization, and we do this in a few different ways. So we help sellers to identify where they're missing key data points, and then we provide an easy-to-use interface to enrich that and complete that data in the form of the Optiseller platform. But we also have a data optimization team here. So again, if you're looking at what we're talking about today and it's feeling incredibly overwhelming and not something that you feel that you or your team have the capability to do, and you're looking for somebody who can actually come in and do that data optimization for you, please do reach out, because again, we have a team who are very capable, who can actually do the optimization piece on behalf of sellers. So we offer both the ability to do that yourself through our tools, but we do also have a team who do that on behalf of sellers and provide that information back in a variety of different formats, whatever really suits the seller best to integrate with their existing solutions. So I'm really looking forward to showing you how you can use Optiseller to optimize your eBay listings, and we'll go through an actual demo in a few minutes' time. So now the bit about who we are is out the way. Let's get into the bit that probably drove you here today, item specifics and the upcoming eBay mandate. So the main aim of this is to show you how to sell more on eBay by fully optimizing item specifics and by using the free tools that are currently available from Optiseller. Now, part of that is going to be education around why item specifics are useful. Is it just a box ticking exercise, or is there something deeper to it? A spoiler, there is something deeper to it. And then the practical side to that, how do we actually deal with that? So just so everyone's on the same page, I'm going to go through what are item specifics and why are they so important on eBay. Now, I'm sure there'll be sellers with us who will say, I already know this stuff, and sorry if I'm teaching you something that you already know. I just think it's important before we get to the what we're going to do about it part. It's really important to understand what's the problem that we're trying to solve, or why is it important. So what are item specifics? So item specifics are little nuggets of information that are really crucial to your search visibility and your sales performance on eBay. And they provide important attributes of a product you're selling. So things like brand, size, type, color, material, and any other measure of relevant data. We can see an example here that's provided some really useful information about this specific product. Now, a lot of sellers will think that the primary function of item specifics is to provide simply additional information, but their value in search and filtered search isn't to be overlooked. Yes, they certainly provide extra information for buyers, but that's not their sole function. And we need to view item specifics as a route to getting in front of relevant buyers. So by populating the relevant item specifics, what you're doing is ensuring that your listings are going to be easily found by buyers and allow them to firstly purchase with confidence, but also filter your products into their search results. So on this screen, you can see on the left-hand side what you would typically see as a left-hand navigation on eBay. And there's an example here of key item specifics such as color, brand, material, etc. Now, this is obviously very prevalent on eBay's web pages, and if you're using desktop, but becomes even more even more of a focus on the mobile and tablet versions of the eBay app. So if you're familiar with using the mobile and tablet versions, you'll notice that when you're doing your free text search on eBay, just underneath that, there's a range of different filters. Now, it's worth noting that these filters are only going to show us the default eBay values, and they're going to be presented to a buyer with a certain level of importance assigned to them. How valuable are these specific filters? And that's going to be based on historical data on people who have previously used those filters and then purchased using eBay. So where a seller has filled out things like color, brand, and material, which we can see that this specific or this image item has, we can see they're actually giving themselves the best possible opportunity to be found and filtered into those relevant search results. So that's a big part of why item specifics are so important, and a big part of why eBay have driven these mandated changes. So why do they matter? Well, they're SEO for your eBay listings, essentially. They provide keyword-rich data about items that you're selling, but it's not just about additional information. By completing these item specifics, you're ensuring that your products are going to be found both on eBay's internal search, but also on external search engines like Google Shopping, as an example. So the data suggests that more and more buyers are using filters to search for these products, and it's become a really critical part of a customer's journey on desktop, and even more importantly on mobile and tablet. So in a nutshell, the better you can fill out those item specifics, the more relevant buyers that your product's going to be put in front of, and then as a consequence, the more sales that you're going to make. So another little takeaway tip as well, worth noting that these item specifics add a lot of value in titles as well. So where you have some really key relevant item specifics such as brand or type, including those in the title if you know that they're likely to be searched for, can really help understand how to structure a title, as well as offering value in that filtered search as well. So not surprising to know that 55% of eBay searches include an item specific or some level of filtering. And this has come directly from eBay Connect. What's interesting is that in some categories, this actually goes a lot higher. So over 80% of eBay customers are likely to filter for item specifics in women's fashion categories. That's one where really high level of filtering, where we're looking at sizes, colors, materials, things like that. In general, different categories are going to have a different amount of filter applied. And part of what our tool can offer is an understanding of actually what is the buyer demand in any given item specific. How many people are filtering via that item specific on eBay, and trying to offer you a little bit of insight to help you to prioritize where it is you're spending your time when it comes to item specifics. So hopefully we're all now a little bit more on the same page in terms of why are item specifics so important, and why do eBay value them so much, and in turn, why do we offer tools that help people with item specifics. So you've probably heard or received an email from eBay that there is a deadline coming up for the 12th of July for the latest set of mandated changes. So what this means is that they're going to have some new item specifics which are going to now be required. So at the moment, there are certain item specifics that are required in order to list on eBay. Basically, that list is getting slightly bigger in certain categories. So if you haven't had that email, we're reminding you here, that deadline is the 12th of July. We have a host of blog posts about how that affects specific categories. And also Chris Cook from our customer success team has recorded a Q&A about the mandated changes and with some frequently asked questions. So feel free to ask for that. That can be sent across to anybody. Equally, it is on our blog section at optiseller.com, as well as on our YouTube as well. So please feel free to reach out if you think that would be of use. So what are these changes? Basically, eBay monitor what's happening on eBay and how searches are being put through the system from buyers, and they're continually trying to improve that experience for both the buyer and the seller. So they notice that particular categories have a high demand for filtering, and that's where these mandated changes come from. So it's not just come from nowhere. There really is specific value where eBay have highlighted the category that you're selling in has a new required item specific. It might feel like there's a lot of extra work to do, but actually it's a really positive thing. What it tells us is that there's data to suggest that completing those item specifics is likely to increase your visibility in search results and ultimately drive more revenue for you. So the basic principle is that customers don't want to trawl through lots and lots of pages of items. We all know that the higher that you can get on the search results, the more likely you are to be successful. But more and more buyers are relying on that filtered search mechanic to really filter out the stuff that isn't relevant to them and filter in the stuff that is relevant. And that's why eBay have responded the way they have. So sellers are going to have to add these newly required item specifics by the 12th of July. Typically, eBay mandates certain categories maybe twice a year, and this all started back in around 2018, has continued right the way through 2019, 2020, and we believe that we're going to see this trend continue with eBay with mandated changes in categories where we know there's high levels of demand. So it is something that is here to stay, and we really believe in kind of getting ahead of the game when it comes to item specifics, being prepared for the deadline, but also future-proofing our listings for any upcoming changes that might come across later on this year, 2022 and beyond. So this is a pie chart of the current categories that are going to be affected. I'm not going to run through every single one and how many categories are affected, but generally speaking, sporting goods, collectibles, some really high levels there, stuff in parts, accessories, musical instruments. If you're selling in those categories, it's really worth being aware of which item specifics have now changed. If you're wondering, well, where can I go and find out how that's affecting my listings? Well, that's where our tool can come in really handy. So I'm going to show you that in just a second. But if you're selling in any of these categories that are listed here, things like type, brand, department, style, color, if they haven't historically been required, there's a good chance that they're going to be required now. And we obviously want to get ahead of that and make sure that when that switch gets flipped on the 12th of July, we're in the best possible position that all of our item specifics are already up to date and ready to go. So probably a question some of you might be asking right now, what happens if I don't take any action? Great question. So you risk your listings not being found by buyers in search, particularly if it is something that's been actioned by a lot of your competition. We know that the item specifics that are being asked for as required item specifics come with a high buyer demand when it comes to filtering. So by not having those item specifics included, there's a good chance you're actually filtering yourself out of the relevant buyers who are looking for your products. The other impact is you then can't revise any affected listings until you actually go about making changes. So that goes as far as things like pricing, quantity, wanting to make a tweak to a title, or change a description or something like that. You're going to get an error message which is actually going to stop you being able to make those changes. So again, a really good reason to get ahead of the game and not be hit with these error messages when the time comes to make changes. So you can't publish any new listings in any of the affected categories without those new item specifics in place. So if it's if you're a business who is repeatedly adding new product lines in those categories, be aware that it's going to become sort of standard procedure from here on out to include those item specifics if you want to be able to list in those categories moving forward. And all of the above is basically going to have an impact on your sales performance, which is what this all comes back to ultimately. As I've said before, this isn't just a box ticking exercise. Yes, it can mean putting in some cases, a significant amount of work to update item specifics. But the purpose behind it is all about getting your products in front of more relevant buyers in order to ultimately sell more. We don't want any of that stuff to happen to you. We don't want you to face any of those consequences. We want you to be ahead of the game. And that's why we have our tool, Aspect Finder Plus. This is the main Optiseller tool that is currently funded by eBay. In fact, it's the only Optiseller tool that's currently funded by eBay. And its purpose is precisely that, to basically optimize your item specifics, but also to provide some key information around strategy and process to make this easier for you in the long run. We're absolutely focused on wanting you to make more money and drive more sales, but we're also very aware that the data can become time consuming, which is why we want our tool to help save time as well as help make money. What is Aspect Finder? It reviews your eBay listings and then highlights item specifics that are required or required soon, also the recommended and additional. But it's basically like an SEO tool. So its purpose is to increase search visibility overall. What it does, it generates a report, and by reviewing eBay listings and highlighting those key item specifics, it gives you an opportunity to make those changes. So the idea is that we're quickly and efficiently identifying not just missing item specifics, but also ones that we consider to be suboptimal. It's also going to find and recommend changes based on existing information within your listings, and it's going to give you detail on where current buyer demand is. So we really know which item specifics are most filtered for, and therefore which ones we should be really focused on providing the best quality data for. It tries to automatically provide recommendations and suggestions, and what it tries to do is do that in line with existing eBay values. And during the demo, we're going to talk about why using existing default eBay values is always a really good strategy when it comes to item specifics. The good thing to know is that there's no integration required, so you can sign up, link your eBay store, and straight away generate a report. And as I've said, Aspect Finder is free of charge to all sellers globally until the 30th of September 2021. When we say free of charge, what we really mean is funded by eBay until the end of September. So that's in part due to this push on items mandated changes on the 12th of July, but also the value that eBay know that we offer to sellers on an ongoing basis. If you'd like to take that up and use just the Aspect Finder Plus eBay funded tool, then you can find access to that in Seller Hub under Seller Tools. And there's actually a referral link there that takes you through from eBay. And if you go through that link, you're going to be granted access to the Aspect Finder Plus tool completely free until the 30th of September. So that's worth noting. So let's actually jump into Aspect Finder Plus and show you a demo, show you how it works and how to get the most out of it. So what you guys should all be able to see now is basically a home page within Optiseller. So you can see a whole load of different tools here, and depending on the level of plan that people have with us, they have access to a range of different tools. The one that we're going to look at today is this one here, Aspect Finder Plus. And we're going to take a look at this previously generated report. So here's my Blue Peter. Here's one I created earlier moment. And here are all the categories that we're currently selling in. So Aspect Finder Plus is broken down by category, and you have a range of different ways that you can filter within those categories. Before I show you the filter, one thing that's really worth mentioning at this point is item specifics vary from category to category. And actually, as a kind of baseline, ensuring that your products are in the correct category is really important to make sure that the work that you're doing in item specifics is actually relevant. If you put all the work into item specifics only to then recategorize a product, you might find that you're then having to go back and redo the item specifics and essentially double handle that work. So I would say if there's any questions or concerns around whether your products are currently listed in the correct category, making sure and doing a bit of an audit of your categories is a really important step prior to using Aspect Finder Plus. If that's something that you're struggling with at the moment, we do have some tools that can help with that. They're not available courtesy of eBay. They are part of our paid for plans. However, you can get a free 7-day trial, which I'll explain more about later. But equally, again, if it's something that you're challenged with at the moment around categories, please feel free to reach out. Either myself or the rest of the customer success team would be more than happy to talk about best practice when it comes to categories, and also what tools there are available to help with categorization. But back to Aspect Finder Plus. So within Aspect Finder Plus, what we can see is a whole load of different product categories that we sell in. I can then refine this by different categories if I want to. And I can start to filter by where I have item specifics that are required, where I have some that are required soon, and these are the ones that you're going to see for the 12th of July. Ones that are currently recommended. Actually, the ones that are required soon are currently recommended, but we just know they're going to be required by the 12th, which is why we put them in a slightly different bucket. Anything that's additional. And then we also provide a little bit of extra information around the total number of listings, the total number of units sold, and the quantity that's available. Now, this is really, really good information in terms of helping you to prioritize. Well, we appreciate that there's going to be some sellers who, have a handful of listings, and therefore this process is going to be very, very easy for them. Maybe an hour or so's work making these changes. For sellers who are dealing with significant numbers, it can be really difficult to work out how do I prioritize my time in terms of item specifics. Now, some of that prioritization is going to be based around what's currently required and required soon, because if we don't have those filled in, we're going to be somewhat restricted on eBay. But also, we want to think about actually the return. So if we're going to be focusing, it may well be that we want to focus on an area where we have a high number of units already sold, or we might want to focus based on the fact that we have a high number of quantity available. It's potentially sitting in a warehouse, costing us space and money, and we want to think about optimizing those ones. We might want to base it on the total number of listings in a category because we're kind of really invested in that category. However it is that you choose to prioritize, this can really help you to identify which categories are the ones that you'd like to spend the most time on, or at least spend the first bit of time on. So if we take a look just as an example of something that's required soon, if we go into fishing lines and leaders, what we can see here is that we've got brand, which is currently required, but we've also got line type here, which with this little purple symbol next to it, what that lets us know is that this is going to be required soon. So it's a really good visual indicator that actually this is something that we need to change before the 12th of July. We can then also see recommendeds and then additionals further along that won't have any color associated with them. For purposes of this demo, there is a category I really wanted to dig into for no other reason than it's got a lot of really good information, and it helps to kind of show the value of the tool. So if we take a look at this one here, cycling chains, couple of things to note as we come into this. I do have the option up here to select different categories, but I can also filter by just show me the ones that have requireds, for example, or if there were required soons, I could say just show me the required soons. But for this example, I'm going to say show me anything where I'm missing something that's recommended. What I then get is a list of all the items in this category, a breakdown of the item specifics within that category as well. Now, a little pro tip, there can be a lot of scrolling left or right, so you can absolutely use scroll bars like this, but you can use arrow keys as well to move left and right. So just a little tip for anybody who's working through using Aspect Finder Plus, those side scroller keys can be really helpful for helping with speed and access. So if we take a look, there can be quite an overwhelming amount of different colors and stuff going on. So let's break it down and talk about what each of these colors mean. Firstly, if you ever are wondering, clicking this button here will give you a little key. This key is going to help describe exactly what each color means. So it works a little bit like a traffic light system. If you see something that's green, that means it's good. It's a good value. We're happy with it. There's no changes that need to be made. Something that's red is obviously there's a completely missing value, and we would recommend populating a value there. The yellows and the pinks are slightly different. So if you see a yellow value, this means that either we have potentially found something, like in this case here, where we've actually found something within the listing that we think is going to be a really valuable item specific, or it can mean that something's actually been recommended. So where the tool is slightly less confident in what it's found, and we can see a number of recommended examples underneath it, and we'll show some exact examples in a second. So overall, what we're looking at is green is good, nothing needs to be done. Red is we should be looking at populating this. Pink is this is a seller created value, so this means that this is something that you've free typed in as opposed to using one of eBay's default values. And the yellow is where we've found or recommended a value for you. Now, you might be thinking, well, why are you highlighting to me seller created values? I do a lot of seller created values because I think they offer more specific information to the buyer. As an example, let's say you had something that was described as the color galaxy blue. So rather than having blue in color, you would say, well, this is galaxy blue. And that's arguably a better value when we're talking about offering information to the buyer. But in terms of how you're being found in filtered search, that value could potentially filter you out, because when I search through and I'm using my filters, the option that eBay are going to provide me with is blue rather than galaxy blue. So I want to align my item specifics with the existing eBay default value. And that's why we try and highlight these seller created values, because what we're trying to do is say, actually, in some cases, using eBay's value is going to be a lot better than using this seller created value. Sometimes it might be a case that actually it's just a very slight difference. Like this one here is master link, but instead we've recommended actually master links is the value that eBay would have. So this recommended value comes from a drop down list within eBay. So we want to line up with eBay's value where we can. So really important that we do that. Now, there may be some of you there going, yeah, that's fair enough, but actually in some of the categories I sell in, it's not possible for me to add a non-seller created value. You know, eBay's drop down isn't as expansive as I'd like it to be. The brand term doesn't currently exist, or you know, the exact value that I want to use doesn't exist. And what I would say in those cases is generally I would encourage people to use eBay values where possible, but equally we don't want to misrepresent a product in any way. And if to use an eBay value would end up misrepresenting your product, ultimately it may increase the amount of people the product is shown to, but it's not going to actually result in a higher conversion rate or more sales if it's not relevant to that buyer. And again, it's coming back to this really key idea of we want to get our product in front of as many relevant buyers as possible. So sometimes there is a judgment call that needs to be made around, is using an eBay value actually going to misrepresent our product, or does our product broadly fit into one of eBay's values? If we feel comfortable that it doesn't misrepresent, then I would always encourage you to use an eBay value where possible. If there is a concern that it may misrepresent the product, then you might be safer going with a seller created value. However, that isn't the kind of last line of attack there. What you could do as well is that there's always the option to discuss either with us or with eBay directly whether or not there might be value in adding that to eBay's default values. Now, it's not something that we can guarantee. It's not something that eBay would guarantee either, but you guys are the experts in the products that you're selling. And there may well be you know, a brand, for example, that is up and coming that really should be on eBay's drop down list that isn't currently there. Or there may be a type which again fits really well into the category, but for whatever reason isn't currently on that drop down list. So if you're faced with those kind of challenges, please do reach out, because again, you know, we work very closely with eBay, and we have had sellers in the past who've reached out in that exact situation, who we've been able to work with them and eBay to make sure that actually some new values have been included. Again, it's not something we can guarantee, but it's a case of sometimes if you don't ask, you don't get. And like I say, you guys are the ones with the knowledge about the categories. So yeah, basically, if you can use an eBay value, do. If you can't use an eBay value because it's going to misrepresent your product, then consider whether or not the value that you are wanting to use, whether that should be part of the drop-down list, whether or not it's kind of widely enough used, and come and speak to us if you think that that's the case. The other values you see are obviously ones where we found or recommended values. Now, the recommended values are pulled directly from your listing itself. So our tool's looking at your listing and seeing whether or not anything in there lines up with any of the default eBay values and then recommending it on that basis. So this one here, we can see within brand, it's actually recognizing this brand directly in the title, and therefore it's recommending, because this is one of the drop downs on eBay and this one is not. Our tool has kind of recommended that this could actually be a better value long term. These are always worth giving consideration to in terms of you guys need to have a look at this and make a decision for yourself. You obviously know the product, you know how the title's been structured, so it's not necessarily something that you would just want to blindly apply to everything, but we would always say it's worth kind of putting some eyes on this and seeing whether or not what we've recommended in your opinion makes sense, especially with the education around what makes a good item specific value. Ones where we found it is where we're a little bit more confident, where it lines up really well with what we're actually seeing within the description and the title, and whether that lines up with what exists in the current eBay default values within any specific category. We have missing ones here, and what's great about these is if we click through on the missing ones, it does give us all of the values that we're talking about here. And then you're able to quickly and easily fill those in. I can talk to you in just a moment about how do we actually get this information into eBay in just a sec. This one here is a great example where, you know, as 11 speed, actually, if we look at these values, none of these currently line up with 11 speed. Now, again, this might be a case that we don't want to misrepresent this product. If we put it into, you know, single speed as an example, then actually someone who's looking for single speed may well see this product, but they're very unlikely to buy it if what they're looking for is single speed and this is 11 speed. So that's a great example of where actually what currently exists in the drop-down list, it would be difficult to fit into one of these categories without misrepresenting the product in some way. And that's kind of what I was talking about earlier. Where values are missing, I'd say, really important to fill out those values where you can, and make sure that as a listing, we're completing as many item specifics as possible. Where the buyer demand data comes in is this star value up the top here. And there's probably been some people watching this the whole time thinking, what are those stars for? Why has they got stars? So the stars are all about where we have got a value from eBay on how many searches have taken place in the last 30 days. And as a result, what we do is we apply stars on a category level. So it's important to understand that the stars are linked to a category. So 5 stars does not link to an overall total number of searches. What's 5-star in one category, the value may be significantly higher or lower than what's 5-star in another category. Likewise, this 1-star value may actually have a higher number of searches that have taken place in the last 30 days than a 5-star value in another category, because the stars are category specific. And what we're really trying to do is say within this category, this is kind of a key filtered for item specific. So having an eBay value where we have part type is really important if we want to be filtered in, because actually there's been a high number of searches that have taken place. What's interesting is that sometimes values that are not required, but actually recommended, or sometimes even additional values, can have a higher amount of buyer demand data than some of the required values. So in this case, brand actually only has a 1-star. So it means that people are filtering for it, but set includes has 4.5 stars. So significantly more people filter using this item specific set includes than filter using brand in this category. So even though this is recommended and this is required, actually this is going to offer you more value in terms of being found in filtered search. So really important to follow the buyer demand data. And actually, if we go along, right the way along here, we see there's some buyer demand data in compatible brand. So again, we're missing quite a lot of data here. I would definitely suggest filling this out, because we know that people are filtering using this item specific. So really important where you can fill out anything that has some buyer demand data. Interestingly, we do actually have the values available. They are available in a tool we have called the category lookup tool. And it basically lets you look at specific categories, understand what eBay's default values are, whether different item specifics are required soon, recommended, etc. But it does also show you the values alongside the buyer demand data. So you can see exactly how many searches, filtered searches, took place in the last 30 days where a filter was applied using that item specific. So really handy if you're struggling with whether or not there's maybe 2 or 3 different categories, which one should I be going into? The number of filtered searches can give a really good indication of how many people are filtering in that category. So yeah, really, really good bits of information there. If anybody on the call would like to find out more about that, please let us know. I'd be happy to give you a demo of that tool as well. So everything that we've looked at here has kind of been quality focused. It's very much been around offering item specifics that are going to help you be found in filtered search primarily. There is also a quantitative element to item specifics as well. And if we think of each item ID as potentially having an overall amount of item specifics completed attached to it, so we could say, it's, at the moment 60%, for example. We want to get that as close to 100 as possible. But actually, as we start to move along, some of these values become less and less useful. Certainly not offering a huge amount of information to the buyer, or certainly not things that would necessarily be filtered for in filtered search. Things like custom bundle and bundle description, stuff like that might not offer as much value. In those cases, you have an opportunity here to fill those out using some generic terms. So you might say, custom bundle, no, it's not a custom bundle product, and bundle description is not applicable. And actually, if we say, as an example, that there are 20 item specifics on this individual listing, and we've just filled out 2 of those with information that arguably doesn't offer that much information to the buyer and isn't going to help us in filtered search, but it would offer us 10% more completed item specifics on that item ID. And we know that completing a higher percentage of item specifics can really help drive a higher rate of conversion as well. Now, whether or not that's something that is directly tracked as part of eBay's algorithm, or whether or not it's sort of just a relationship that generally people who take more time and fill out more item specifics have a better quality listing that therefore converts at a higher rate, I don't know. But I know that by having those higher number of overall percentage item specifics complete has a knock-on effect on conversion rate. And actually, there is a really good example on our blog. If you go and take a look, there is a seller, Curated Collectibles, who went through the process of filling out as many item specifics as they could, not just the ones that had higher buyer demand data, but actually all of them. And they saw some stale listings that hadn't sold for over 12 months immediately start selling within a day or 2 days of having made those changes to item specifics. Again, take it from the seller themselves. They've written us a lovely quote, and please feel free to go and have a look at that, and you can see kind of the direct impact of not just the qualitative element of what we do, but the quantitative element as well. So ideally, what our tool is there to do is to provide you with some diagnostics about where you could improve, some really good information about where the demand currently is coming from, and also highlight to you where you're either missing stuff, where we've found something that could be relevant, or where you've got something which is seller created, where actually it would be more pertinent to have something that is an eBay value and then help you line up better in filtered search. So that's Aspect Finder Plus. As I mentioned, if you go through Seller Hub and the Seller Tools, there's a referral link there from eBay. You can get access to this today, courtesy of eBay, for free until the end of September. And once you're in there, we do have a chat function down here where you can end up speaking to myself or somebody else in the customer success or support team, and we'd be more than happy to show you a demo of you using your specific data and offer some specific advice around any changes that should be made, or also how you could actually go about prioritizing which changes you should make. As I said, there's a limited amount of time for some of you guys. I appreciate some of you may have loads of listings, and then it's about, okay, I've got quite a lot I need to change. How do I prioritize that? And I'd say, firstly, prioritize based on whether or not the item specific is currently required or required soon. But then we can start to work smarter rather than harder, and by using the buyer demand data and some of the other bits of information around, quantity sold, current quantity of stock, number of listings, that sort of stuff, we can kind of create a strategy which it may take, weeks or months to complete this bit of data work, but we're making sure that the first work we're doing is going to be the most valuable in the long run. So hopefully that's been useful in terms of understanding how we can make a difference to item specifics using our tool. Final part is, how do I actually get this information up to eBay? So we're aware that some sellers will be listing manually. In that case, there's a couple of different ways we can make changes. When you make a change, this is what it ends up looking like within the tool. So you see this dotted box around it, and that dotted box basically tells us there's a change that's been made here. If I was to make this change here, for example, I see this dotted box, there's a change. That change is not currently live on eBay. What I would need to do is either scroll to the end where I can send this up to eBay on a case-by-case basis, in which case that change is going to happen almost instantaneously on eBay. Or I can make the changes en masse, and I can actually say, please revise all of them once I've made all those changes. Or for a lot of sellers who are using third-party tools, that might not be the most ideal way for them to do this, because they may update it from our tool only to have a third-party tool then overwrite the work they've done. So what we would want you to do in that case is actually export the data, and we provide a variety of different file formats that you're able to export into, and upload that into your third-party tool, which is going to enable you to basically have ownership of the data that comes through the platform. What's really useful about that as well is if you're then looking at other potential places, marketplaces where you want to sell products, where some of the work that you've done on Optiseller would be useful and valuable, you have that data there. There's no restriction in terms of how you use this, so you're welcome to send the information up to eBay and then export the data for backup purposes or anything like that. But essentially, there are 3 different ways of getting this information into eBay. First way is directly one by one. Second way is directly en masse. And the third way is actually exporting this information. And again, we give you a variety of different formats, from a basic comma separated value format to a file exchange format, a MIP format, and Magento as well, because we know a lot of sellers are using Magento. This is something that we're constantly looking at and expanding. So we are having conversations with other third parties about whether or not producing file formats in kind of pre-packaged ways for their software solutions would be useful. So again, if there's any that you work with and it would be helpful to have a conversation around that, please don't hesitate to reach out. But hopefully that's given you a good understanding of the Aspect Finder Plus tool, why it's useful, why you should be using it, and hopefully the value that it's going to offer to you. So back to my presentation. So what is the value of completing item specifics? So the takeaways are basically complete all the item specifics where they're applicable, as they're going to improve your visibility on eBay listings. You reduce the chances of being filtered out of search results when they're completed, or another way of saying that, you increase the chances of being filtered into relevant search results if you have them filled out correctly. You have a great opportunity as well to future-proof listings this way. So getting ahead of further possible eBay mandates and getting ahead of your competitors by having information that they might not have. You're going to receive a lower return rate and less questions for your customer service team to deal with, because that information is actually being provided at the point of purchase for the potential buyer. Just to add, by populating these item specifics for the mandate and doing your item specifics just to the bare minimum, you may well find that actually in months, 6 months, a year's time, you have to then go back and do this work again. So we would say, think about going above and beyond and populating as many of these relevant item specifics as you possibly can, because it's going to offer you better value in the long run in terms of being filtered into search results, but it's also going to be a great time saving. If you can use this tool once now and make all the relevant changes that are going to apply across the board to any mandated changes over the next 12, 18 months, 2 years, it's going to make things a lot easier for you, rather than coming back every few months and adding a new one because eBay have now mandated that that's required. So most important of all, I think it's important to kind of take our advice on board. Hopefully you'll start to then see that increase in sales on the listings, and naturally it will turn around those underperforming and stale listings as well. So really important that we understand it's not a box ticking exercise. It isn't eBay putting sellers under pressure for no reason. There's a really good scientific reason behind this, and it all comes back to appearing in more search results and selling more. So in summary, here are our 5 steps. Don't wait until the 12th of July. Get ahead of your competitors. Go beyond what the mandates are asking you to do. Populate further recommended and additional item specifics to gain further listing views and sales. Prioritize the recommended and additional item specifics by using that buyer demand data. Really, really important. Remember those star ratings. They're going to give you a direct insight into how many filtered searches are taking place in those specific item specifics. So really important to follow the stars. Take advantage of Aspect Finder Plus to optimize your listings whilst it's being funded by eBay. And again, if you go to eBay in the Seller Hub, in the Seller Tools, there'll be a referral link there where you can come to our platform and have access to Aspect Finder courtesy of eBay until the 30th of September. Also worth following our blog for any more information and tips on all things eBay related. So we have a whole load of sellers who have great things to say about working with us, from Rico Europe in parts and accessories to, as I mentioned, curated collectibles. There's lots of quotes and case studies on our site. I'm currently working on another couple of case studies as well, so there's going to be more added to that as well. But don't just take our word for it. Take a look at what sellers are saying about having put the effort into specifically making changes on item specifics, and you'll see some great stats from those sellers. I'm not going to run through all of these now. They've been up on the screen. Hopefully you've had a chance to see. I'm hoping probably people's eyes will have been drawn directly to the percentages there. Yes, if we can provide any more information about this as well, or anything about any of the info that's contained in the case studies, please do reach out. We'd be happy to share. And on that note, that kind of ends my presentation part, and we get to the chance for you guys to ask any questions and for me to respond to any of those. So hopefully we can see if there's Anything that we can add some value to. Right, I'm just going to take a little moment now to have a look through and see some of the questions that might have come up. So Chris said, "Yep, do you have any questions?" Sharon, I've just seen your note about, is there any way that we can go through the report with you? Yeah, be absolutely happy to, Sharon. So I believe we have your email. If not, if it would be possible for you to share that, then yeah, we would be more than happy to go through that with you. So that's great. We had a few questions that came up the last time we did this that might be worth answering for you guys, and I think I'll just run through those quickly, and I think then we'd probably be out of time. So some of the questions that came up last time. Let me just find those here. So what are the consequences if I don't manage to update my item specifics before the deadline? Consequences are your listings are not just going to be sort of ripped down and eBay are going to go, no, you can't sell anymore. But what's going to happen is when you try and make edits, you are going to get error messages come up. You are going to be asked to make changes and things like changing stock quantities, prices, that sort of stuff is going to be really difficult without having basically got in line and conformed with those mandates. So that can be a real problem. Other than item specifics, what are the next important things to focus on to boost my rankings? That's a great question. There's loads of pieces of the eBay puzzle. So item specifics are one part of it. I'd say there's obviously stuff that is very much like business focused decisions, commercial decisions around pricing. You know, what kind of shipping are you offering? Are you offering free shipping, fast and free, expedited shipping, that sort of stuff? But there are some other really key data points that our tool can look at as well. Things like using the full range of characters in a title, or how do you structure your titles to make sure that you're kind of taking advantage of the fact that the titles have a level of descending importance attached to them. How do we make sure we're front loading our key search terms and using item specifics within those? So titles is a really key area. Images is one that I talk about a lot. You know, there's really strong link between conversion rate and number of images and quality of images. Not just that, but the way that having those good quality images and images that are well designed to work well with external search engines like Google Shopping can really help to drive sales from outside of eBay as well. Because remember, you're paying your eBay fees for eBay's platform and marketplace and buyers, but you're also paying it for their marketing as well. So how do we take advantage of that? So they're probably a few of the other key areas. There's lots more. And as I've mentioned, you know, we do have a free trial on our tools. So if you are interested in trying out the range of tools over 7 days, please do go to optiseller.com. You can sign up, you can get access for any of our plan levels for 7 days free of charge before it then rolls over to a contract. And during those 7 days, myself and the customer success team would be really happy to take you through any of the tools and how to get the most value out of them. Do item specifics really increase sales? So in my experience, yes. It was the same question that I asked when I first joined the company. And now I can say confidently that over the last 6 months, the answer has been proven yes. Is it a silver bullet? No. There are lots of different pieces at play when it comes to being successful on eBay. And as I've said to many sellers, there are some of those that are commercial decisions. You could do the best job in the world on item specifics. If you are 10 times the cost of your nearest competitor and price is a huge driver for your buyers, then it's probably not going to have as big a result as you would like it to have ultimately. So that's probably an important answer to that question. Yes, I would say if you have good quality item specifics, they're going to definitely improve the conversion rate, but lots of other pieces, pricing, whether or not you are offering fast and free shipping, whether it's a multi-buy deal, whether your titles are good, whether your images are good, whether you're in the right category, all these pieces are gonna play together there as well. Helen, how do you overcome a required specific which clearly is not relevant to your item? So really, really good question there, Helen. Sometimes the first question I would ask is, whether or not that there might well be some implication that perhaps that means that there might be some miscategorization. Now, it's not always the case, but it's just the most important first question to ask to make sure that then what we do is is going to make sense over a longer period of time. But actually, within the ones where there is nothing relevant that you can answer, but it is required, then you are still able to put in something along the lines of NA or not applicable if it's really not, or just not relevant if it's really not relevant for your product. So I think it's probably worth noting that if there's really nothing of use that you can put into that, the free text box does still exist there for you. So just making sure you have something in there rather than nothing is going to be recognized by eBay as you having completed that item specific. Hopefully that answers that question for you, Helen. Okay, excellent. So hopefully those were some of the key questions we've been asked. The final point that I would just add around this is a couple of little bits here about where you can find us and stuff like that. So you can find us on Twitter at We Are Optiseller. Our website is optiseller.com. As I mentioned, you can get your 7-day free trial from optiseller.com. If you want to use the eBay funded version of Aspect Finder Plus, please visit us via the Seller Hub link. You can reach out to us directly by phone or by email, or within the app itself. There's an opportunity to talk to us, and you can find the webinar recording at optiseller.com/blog, and that will be available from tomorrow. It'll also go up on our YouTube channel, so feel free to share that with people or rewatch it on a Friday night if you feel so inclined. Thank you very much for attending. I hope this has been useful. I hope you've managed to get some value out of what we're doing and are able to now use our tools to help with improving those item specifics. And I hope that you can now see that it's not just a box ticking exercise, and there's some really good science behind what it is that eBay are doing and ultimately what we're doing to serve them. So if there's no further questions, I'll just check the chat one more time. I think we've earned ourselves 3 minutes. Okay, excellent. Well, again, thank you everybody for your time. Please feel free to reach out to us if there's anything that we can do. Take care.